Alright, so first things first, the manufacturer for those three brands that I mentioned, KTM, Husqvarna, and Gas, give you free service manuals to download on their website. So you basically go to their website, search service, and then manuals, and then you type in your year and model, and select the right one from a drop down, and then click download. It's real straightforward and simple. So I know it's kind of dorky saying, hey, download a manual, but here's the reason for it. I use all the torque specs. On cars, yeah, torque specs are important for suspension and critical components. On a dirt bike, I don't play. I want my forks torqued exactly what factory requests or states. My the axle capture bolts, all that stuff, super critical. If you tighten your lower fork clamps too tight, it literally will squeeze the fork tube just enough to actually hinder your fork's ability to work correctly. So that, if that's not reason enough to get this free manual, I don't know what is. But rear axle torque specs, linkage, you can just go down the list of things. And so basically it's a really easy deal to do, and it gives you everything you need to know, including suspension set points to start from, which is what I do quite often when I get a brand new bike that's foreign to me. Obviously, whether it's new or used, it doesn't really matter. You can look up any year of bike that you buy from those three brands, and you'll see the torque specs for those. So that's the most important thing about doing this. And they're in really full color. It's actually quite cool. So you can use this, leave it on your desktop for every, especially like oil changes. If you're not familiar with these bikes, they do tend to change them every few years, and so you just don't want to take anything for granted or overlook anything, especially engine oil, because engine oil is super critical on these bikes. They don't hold a lot, and the very little that they hold is very critical. So it's your wallet. Do whatever you wish with it. However, this is just my recommendation. So like chain slack, for instance, I mean, the three finger rule will only get you so far. So again, just another example of why. So I want to pull up the torque specs, and then we'll get started on pulling this thing apart. Most of this is just getting it out of the way so we can look at what we're working with here. Let's see here. Next is a little EFI. This is the fuel pump connector. Get that guy unhooked, and then this is your fuel line, which is disconnected easily by pushing this little button here. A little bit of fuel is going to come out, but these O-rings right here, just don't want to snag those guys. And those guys stay put. So the seat actually slides under these two guys here. And then we have four little 8mm guys. And when I say 8mm, I mean the socket size, not the size of the actual bolt. It's probably 6mm. And I will caution you on using an impact. I always discourage it on assembly, not disassembly. Disassembly is fine, in my opinion. It's always good to tag and bag your stuff, especially the less familiar with these bikes you are, the more I would encourage you to tag and bag your parts. I mean, it takes maybe 15 bags at the most, and then you'll know exactly what goes where, because sometimes in the past these bolts have been two different lengths. And in fact, I believe the one that holds the horn is slightly longer, if it's the same as it was in the past. Yeah, it is. Yeah, this one's just slightly longer than the top one here. The horn is not going back on. It's gonna go in a bag. Yeah, you can see the difference here. See the difference? That's the one with the horn there. So a lot of times you can just put the bolts off to the side nearest where they go, and that'll kind of keep you on track as to where you were. And let's see here, I think that's it for the tank here. So what you do is you grab both of the shrouds and kind of pull them out, and you go, oh wait, there's a take your vent line off. There's one more here. See what I mean? You just get sidetracked and you forget where you're at. Guys that do this day in and day out obviously are not going to have the same feelings of having to tag and bag, but hey, to each his own. And this will be another clue as to where these bolts go. Tank, basically. So again, pull the shrouds out and lift up and in the back. Hey, that's some. Oh. I had to check myself for a second there. I'm going to take the airbox cover off. Thank God they kept that. I really like the toolless airbox remover. Put that in a nice safe place. Now get us closer. What is it, buddy? What do you want? It's Stuart. Cat goes on the toilet. I kid you not. If you don't believe me, check out my Instagram page, McDaniel Motorsports. I think it was my first post of him peeing on the toilet. Let's see here. Now, again with this tank, this is kind of a, oh, there we go. I was thinking that these came off, but they actually don't. And then this is like the difference of, so the last 500 that I built was a 2022. And it really, they've changed it obviously since 2024, so it's slight differences. There seems to be a disruption. Stand by. I wanted to point out that in every OEM bag that you get with the bike when you buy new will come with a wash plug set. Okay, so not only is it just plugs, O-rings for your fuel line, there's actually a throttle cam in these as well. And we'll get into the throttle cams once we get to the handlebars section of this program. However, you want to make sure that your fuel line stays debris free. And in this wash plug kit, not only has some O-rings, a couple extra fuel filters, but it has a cap, which could also probably be found at an auto parts store, or a vacuum plug that you might have laying around, or a vacuum cap set. But this guy goes right on there, and that'll keep the debris out of the fuel line while we're doing this mess. So I somewhat misled you. These don't come off. We just have to finagle these guys up and over. There we go. Kind of go. It's kind of an awkward deal. I wish I had a better frame to demonstrate. But once we get that out of there, this guy goes somewhere safe. Like your wrecked truck tire. You just put that there. It's probably not going to be good. I'll figure out another place for that after it falls off and breaks. Maybe put it here. I don't want to screw it up. There we go. That's better. So, correction on your wrecked truck's cross member. You want to make sure that this fuel line doesn't get damaged. And there's the fuel line on the other end has a little filter that goes inside there. It's kind of like a little pre-screen. There's obviously a sock inside the tank on the fuel pump, but there's a secondary screen for like on the trail. If you get a clogged filter, you'll know you can actually clean it out or blow it out. So all right, so we're getting to where we have more and more room to access things. I do have to remove the silencer. So basically I'm just creating space to access everything. So I'm gonna have to pull this side number plate off and get this muffler out of the way. I'm gonna put it aside with all my stock stuff. I always keep the stock stuff. Depending on how much room you have around the shop. Some people like it. When they buy a bike, they want the stock stuff, but honestly, it's mostly trash. So let me get situated and we'll get this number plate off. So I'm out of bags. What do you know? However, I found some of these crappy little solo cups. So I'm gonna, before I get too deep, use these guys, and they can be stacked. So tank. It's kind of ghetto, but it works, and they can be stacked. So, and what I don't know, or I'm sorry, what I'm not super thrilled about is that in order to get this side cover off, you got to remove the rear fender and the muffler and all that. So I guess there's really no reason to remove this side cover. I just do it for wire routing, for the turn signals and everything, in order to tidy up things, plus the desmog process as well. It just makes it a little bit easier to run stuff. But otherwise, I mean, so I guess I should take my what I was beginning to say is I'm not really wild about the design of how complicated it is to remove this, but in all reality, if you don't really need to remove this in most cases. But for the sake of this video, I'm going to do it just to show you guys that it's really not that bad, and everything just kind of comes off in layers. So I'm just trying to demonstrate that for you guys. But you should be familiar with your motorcycle anyway. If you're riding something, you should know everything there is to know about it, within reason, of course. You don't need to know how it was made and all that, but you should be able to familiarize yourself with it, especially if you're going to keep it for a while. So let me silence that. All right. So remove this. You know, what's really weird is this bike actually comes with a catalytic converter. It's actually in line in the mid pipe. I had no idea. But it's just subtle little changes that you have to be aware of. It seems like they make subtle changes every year, but like the real big redesigns are every 4 or 5 years. And this has springs, of course, and the springs are designed for movement, obviously. Spring pullers are always a good thing to have. Of course, my spring puller is broken and gone, but you can use a vice grip or a pair of pliers. Yeah, they're just on the bottom. There we go. That guy's off. And make sure this thing is ready to go before you take the last bolt off. Don't want to lose those little washers. There we go. And you're going to have to transfer these little guys over too. These guys get transferred over to the new exhaust, so you want to hold on to those. the way they work is if you pull the aluminum spacer out, a lot of these designs have been around for a while. I'm just having to learn some of the nuances. Easy enough, and then once you get the spacers out, they kind of just collapse. Sometimes you can do them with your hands, sometimes you can't. There you go. You just push them out like that. You don't want to damage these guys. Do your best anyway. Okay. Put this guy aside. Yeah, the springs are kind of like a ball and socket type system. They allow for movement. So now you can see. Oh, I thought there must be inside the muffler. Let's see if we can see it. Yeah, it must be inside there. They actually pointed out in the manual, but there's a cone type screen in there. This is obviously forestry legal, but we don't need the cat where we're going. All right, so tailpipe, see how they stack? Nice and neat, doesn't take up a lot of space. But yeah, just along with, you know, just like anything else, building cars or dirt bikes, you just want to stay organized as good as you can and keep your footprint small so you don't get too cluttery. Okay, so now rear fender. Sorry, I'm not gonna film every time I put a bolt in a cup, so that's kind of why I keep cutting out. But I've already kind of done some pre-work here, so all the screws that hold this guy are accessible without doing any of this. So you can actually get to those guys just from the bottom. And they look like wood screws. For the sake of being thorough, this is actually what they look like. There's actually a couple machine fasteners in there, and the it's like 6 other wood type screws that actually screw into the bottom of the fender. There's these dowels. See if I can get an angle on that for you guys. But there's see those dowels? There's 3, 4, 5, 6. It's like 5 wood screws right there, and then the 2 machine ones are the furthest forward. They go up from the bottom. All of that holds that thing on there. This big atrocious bracket. So I always wondered why they don't put more thought into this Christmas tree looking thing. I don't know, maybe it's just cheaper, but these are just awful. They get wiped out in the first down, laying down the bike. So I'm not really a crasher per se. I ride more conservatively, but yeah, those things don't last very long, so I'm not sure why they do that, but the little button ones are the jam in my opinion. So, all right, let's get this back fender off. See, the fender gets loosened up there. And then spread these little clips apart. And the good thing is these things they don't fit together any other way than they came apart. So that's one thing you can be sure of, is that they really can't be screwed up. Watch me screw them up. No. I'm pretty sure these are all straightforward. getting them apart might be another thing altogether. So I got those guys off, and just trying to see. Let's see if we can move this. There we go. I'm really trying to keep this in going forward for you guys to see all this. There's another zip tie here, another skinny guy. If you want to do it, you can separate the fender now. Fish these guys through. So we're ditching that whole thing. Now this kind of gets a little confusing. So some of them pull forward, like this guy here has the 3 connections on it. That goes forward and stays with the bike. These will be reused. Just gotta be gentle. Just ease them out slowly. Don't want to pull the plugs off. As you do this, it'll make sense. I promise you. Everything is pretty straightforward. So connector there. What is it, buddy? Stuart's 20. He's old and confused. Just walks around meowing all day. Okay, this guy. Yes. There's that guy going. Oh. Try not to throw my new fender on the ground yet. Gonna have to search out this connector here, which is gonna be most likely running under the ECU. And the ECU is this guy right here. Engine control unit. That's what ECU stands for. And this tray actually moves. It'll actually come up and come off if you remove this guy right here. I don't know that we have to do that though. Don't fall off, man. Stay with me. I don't really care about the turn signals. I just don't want my fender getting screwed up before I screw it up. Yeah, so there we go. So this guy right here. And sometimes these guys require a screwdriver, but most of the time if you push them forward and push down, they will come apart. When they're new, sometimes they're a little trickier. So let me grab a little control screwdriver.